Okay, we're back and we're COMP123 and it's week 10, lesson 10, part 3. And we just finished talking about checkboxes. And now we're going to go back in and talk about the other types of UI controls. Just going to go back into this thing. And yeah, it does all that reformatting and rephasing again. Let's go back. So again, we talked about the checked property, the check property of the text box or the checkbox, right? But the check property can also work for radio buttons, right? And again, I use this check changed method, right? That's what the check change method is. It's kind of like a method that allows us to check whether the control has been checked or not, right? The text property of the checkbox or radio button is the label that is associated with it, right? Let's talk about classes for a second, just for 1 second. Not that you have to remember this stuff, but if I go back to my toolbox here and I just put it on, and I go back to my my design view here, right? Take a look. I've got a label, right? And a label is its own control, right? I also have a button, and I also have other things. Well, when I look at this checkbox, it looks like almost like it reminds me of a label that's paired with something else, which means to me that the checkbox control has inherited the label, right? That's what this control is. And if you actually looked at the checkbox control, you would see that this checkbox is made up of 2 items: a label that's embedded inside of it, plus the checkbox itself. Okay, just for curiosity, I'm just mentioning it, not because I want you to remember, but I want you to think about this when we do stuff. For now, because I made some changes, I'm going to go to Team Explorer. I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to go to Changes, and I'm going to say, I also have some untracked files here. Be careful. We have untracked files. They don't get included. I'm going to add all my untracked files. And I'm going to go here and go make a new commit. I'm going to say added group boxes and checkbox to form. Commit, home, unsync commits, and sync. So now you guys should have what I have. Okay, so here's my form with my show buttons and everything else. And you know what? I want to add some radio buttons, right? And maybe I want to add some radio buttons here in the options, right? So how would I do that? I'm going to have to take a look. There's a checklist box. We don't want that. Can I go back down here? Maybe there's a radio button. So I'm going to try and pull a radio button. I'm going to pull it inside my options group box right here. And if you notice, there's some built-in, formatting that it's trying to give me. I'm going to put one there at the top, right? Here's my radio button. And I'm going to put another radio button underneath it, right? And maybe I want to put another one underneath that. Why not? We'll do 3. Now they're named really funny names. What should I do, right? Well, you know what? I want this options screen to change the color of my background, right? So let's do this. I'm going to click on my radio button 1. I got to rename this thing, and I want to change this thing to default radio button with a capital D. I want at the same time to change the text property of it, right? The text button of the text property of the radio button to default. I also want to change the checked property. In this particular case, the checked property, I want to make is true. Here's my default is true, right? Now there's a couple of things here, right? I want each of these radio buttons to kind of be linked up somehow, right? So here's my default radio button. Let's go down here because this is a different, there might be a different set of controls here, right? Padding, size, text alignment, text, use mnemonic, wait for cursor. Well, there's nothing really that tells me that these radio buttons in any way are linked to each other. Let's just run it this way without any programmatically changing anything yet. I'm not going to change radio button 2 or 3, not yet. So I'm going to start the program, right? And then, of course, by default, when I start it, it's not visible. I got to click the show button to make it visible. And if I click the other radio buttons, they move, which means automatically somehow they're linked, right? Why is that? Yes? It's in the same group box. Very good. It automatically takes on this behavior. I don't have to program it. It knows that when I put radio buttons in the same group box, they're linked. Okay, that's number one. Yeah.
Would you ever need to have a separately linked radio buttons?
You might, depending on the type. In the same box, maybe. And there's ways of doing that, but for now, typically not. Doesn't make any sense from a UI design perspective anyway, right? Okay, so again, UI meaning user interface. So, okay, I want my default color, right? This is what these options are. And I want to click on my radio button 2 would be a different color, and a radio button 3 would be a third color. Maybe we'll make this, I don't know, maybe a green color because it's St. Patrick's Day, right? And a blue color because I'm a boy, right? And you know what? Odd, another one. Odd. Is pink okay for the girls? Just asking, right? I'm not being socially unacceptable here. I'm just saying that. How about this? The pink color is for me. All right, I like the pink color. I like it. I don't mind. I think pink is cool anyway. But anyways, I just think that let's just put them in here because boys and girls colors have no matter. Let us drag and drop yet another box just to be fair to the boys and the girls and just the pink lovers in the class, and put it in here like this because I'm a pink lover. So we're going to say green, blue, and pink, right? Green, blue, and pink. Actually, those are the typical colors for babies, aren't they? If you don't know what the baby's gender is, you pick green, right? If you pick up blue for a boy and pink for a girl. I'm just saying, right? So I've highlighted my radio button 1, and you notice it took on a different name when I added this in because it didn't find radio button 1 here in the mix. So it tries to default back to the regular radio buttons. Okay, so here's radio button 1. I'm going to change this to pink radio button. I'm going to kind of scroll down all the way, and I'm going to change the text value of this thing to say pink. Right? Here's pink. And I'm going to go back to radio button 2, click on that, go to properties. Hey, I'm over here at the text property. I'm going to change the text property to blue. Right? And I'm going to scroll all the way up, so it's going to say blue radio button. You get my meaning, right? Okay, you do the other one. What would the other middle radio button be? And what should I call it? Radio button. What should I call this radio button if I'm going to make it green? The actual name for the radio button. What should I call it? Huh? Green radio button. That's good. Green radio button. It's got to be contextual is what I'm saying, right? And of course, I'm going to change the name of my text field to green. Okay, cool. I've added the radio buttons. They're all different. But when I want to do it is I want to click on the radio button, and I've got the submit button down here. So when I click on one of these options, it's not going to change the color, right? I want to click the submit button for the changes to take effect, all right? Well, this is just the way I want to do my workflow. I could make it so that when I click any of these things, it's automatic, right? You know, as an example, I could also make it so that the submit button doesn't say submit, it says accept, right? Which might be a better UI, kind of decision to make, right? So let's do that. Let's rename a couple things here, and I'll show you how this can be done. So here's my submit button. I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to go to the top of my submit button where it says submit button, and it's going to be called a new button. It's going to be called accept button. Yeah.
If you had used that variable to make any sort of event currently happen with your submit button, and you went and switch it to accept button, and does it automatically change for you?
Not necessarily.
So that could ruin your program.
Well, you have to check it. Make sure that it doesn't. Sometimes it will. If you change the value of the accept button and you have an event, it'll change the event because it's related. And typically it'll reference for you, but you should check it anyway.
Yeah, like if you use it somewhere else in like an if statement or something like that, will it also recognize
it should automatically recognize, but check it anyway. Okay, that's why I'm doing this for you. So here's my accept button, and I'm going to just go back, and now my submit button has been my accept button. Okay, cool. Maybe some kind of control that shows me the default colors would be cool too. Like I should have a little swatch here that shows blue, a little swatch here that shows green, and a little swatch here that shows pink, almost like a preview, right? Which colors I want. Now, how do I do that? Any ideas? I want to show green, blue, and pink.
Text box.
A text box is a text, right?
Picture box.
I can have a picture box, but I have to put a picture in it. How about another group box? Can I do that? Doesn't really matter, right? Let's look down here, like what I have. I have a tooltip box, a text box, a rich text box. I could use a text box. I could use a label too if I want to, right? But probably one of the best choices is some kind of container. I don't want to use a panel, right? I don't want to do flow layout panel or some of these are split panels or anything like this. But maybe a group box within the group box would be okay. Okay, let's try that and see if I can do that. Well, here's my default, and it's really big, but I'm going to resize this thing so it's the proper size. Try this. I'll move this over here like this. Here's my group box. So here's my swatch, right? I'm going to click away. It's called group box 1. I got this group box 1 here. I don't need a text label for this. I'm just going to get some, I'm going to kind of get rid of this text label, right? So here it is. Now my group box is a group box. And you know what? I need to make this so that it's contextual. My group box has to have a contextual name. What should I call this thing? So, well, default group box, right? Come on, makes sense. Default, right? Default group box. And look, I have a background color to it already. And it's the control color, right? Right here. If you look it down, it's the background color is the control color. I don't have to change anything, right? Maybe though, because it's a group box, could I add some kind of border? And if you look at flat style, what it says here, this standard is flat style. I could change it so that it's a pop-up, flat, or a system, right? I could do that. There's also other things you could set up with things like margins and padding and everything else. But it's really, for the group box, it's really around the flat style. So if I change my flat style to something else, like let's say, for example, a pop-up, and I go back, right? You can't see it, but there's a little bit of a ridge there, right? If I go back to flat style, to the way it was before, flat style is standard, pop-up, right? Oh wait, I'm not checking my group box. I'm checking the whole group box, right? This thing. I don't want that. I want this to be standard, and I want this to be a pop-up, which it already is, right? My foreground color is my control text. I don't need to change that. And if you notice, there's also system for flat style. So if I go to system and I click away, see what it looks like now. No change really, right? So I don't really see a change to this thing at all, this flat style or whatever, right? How about other things down here? Is there other kind of things I can do to kind of highlight this thing here? Because I want to kind of highlight the area. Well, if I go down, if I look at components, pointer, event log, nah, that's nothing there. If I go to printing, we're going to get back to this in a second. Hey, look, there's a print dialog, and there's a print preview dialog. Hey, that might be something I need for my print preview for my assignment, right? And let's go to my dialogues. I want to open up dialog. Here's my reporting, my Visual Basic Power Packs, and my WPF interoperability. Really isn't anything I can use from a drawing perspective here that I'm comfortable using, right? So I'm going to leave it the way it is, right? So it's just a little example. Yeah. Are you raising your hand? You're stretching? Okay. Okay, so that's cool. Let's leave it the way it is. I'm going to go back to my standard style because it doesn't seem that there's anything that's really, there's no change, visible change here. Okay, let's add another one. But now this time I'm going to copy this one because I've already got this one here, right? I'm going to copy it. If you notice, I've just moved it a bunch of times. I'm going to copy this one and paste it. So I'm going to go Control C, Control V. Can I do that? Yes, I can. And I can put this new one underneath the other one. Control C or Control V. I put the other one over here. Then Control V. I put the next one down here. Oh, there it is. There's my samples, right? See how this works out. Okay, cool. This one, let's see what this second one is called. Properties. I'm going to go up to it. At the top it says Group Box 1. Oh, man. I can't have Group Box 1. It's got to be Blue Group Box. Blue Group Box. And I have an option here of changing the background color. Let's change the background color at design time. So here I'm going to choose, and you know what? I want to be smart about this. So I want to make it so that it's a highlight, some kind of built-in system color. I could choose other colors up here. If you notice, there's web colors and there's custom colors, right? Web colors are standard colors also. Oops. web colors now are also some standard colors. Also, if I scroll down, there might be also a blue color, like sky blue, steel blue, cadet blue, a bunch of blues, and there's also blue. Let's just use blue, right? Okay, so that's the blue color. Let's see. Let's click away and see how that looks. Does it look okay? All right, so that's our check. That's our actual box itself, right? Let's see how this appears on the screen when it comes up. So I want to see if this makes sense to look at. So I'm going to click on it, and then I have this weird. Me not like. I don't like this at all, right? I think it's crap, right? In fact. So how do we change that? So obviously my group box, I'm trying to think of ways to do this, right? My group box is really not something that's working out for me nicely right now. I'm not happy with that. And again, from a design time perspective, it's good to understand how to use this thing. There's an anchor, top left, my background color, my background image. I could use an image, but I don't recommend it. I could use a cursor color, which is default. The dock, I can enable it or disable it. My flat style. Let's see if I change that now to standard. Does that change? No, it doesn't change that. And my control text is my foreground color, which is just the text color that's inside of it. So really, maybe this is not a great control, right? Would you agree? Yeah. Right? I'm trying to show you what kind of control you could use if you wanted to show an image. Now, picture box would be the best thing, but we don't have the picture, and I don't want to download pictures and waste time. So, yes.
Can you use the background color of the text box?
I could do a text box. Someone suggested a text box earlier. I said no, of course not. But maybe that's really the best option. Let's try that. So I'm going to try and kind of go in there and delete this thing. Delete. 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 Bear with me while I explore. And now I'm going to pull in a text box. But the text box is going to be disabled, right? Because I don't want anyone to click in there, right? So here's my, if I go down to text box, here it is. Here's my text box. And I want to put it next to this label and line it up properly. There it is. That's cool. I like that. But my properties, I want to set the properties up the first time. I want it disabled, right? But if I make it disabled, it gives me some default visibility. It changes the style of my window a little bit, right? So if I go to enabled false for my text box, and if I run it at runtime, if I run it, it shows me it kind of grays it out. Let me show you. See, it's kind of grayed out, right? Well, that's okay. That's a default functionality. If I go to properties now, I'm just going to change this thing. I'm just going to check it to see if this works out better for me. And I'm going to change. I'm not going to change the text box yet because I want to kind of explore. My background color is window, and my border style is fixed 3D. Right? I could make it fixed single, which puts a little border around it. And I want to make it. If I want to change the color, my foreground color, instead of window, I want to go back to web blue, just a blue color. I'll use the blue one first. Just bear with me while I do this. Let's see if it retains the blue color. That's much better. Let's see if it retains this blue color when I start. Now it's disabled, remember? I'm good. So that I can't click into it, but it retains this default color when I'm starting. That's good, because I've overridden the color that it takes on when it's disabled. Disabled, it changes the color of your controls, right, to gray them out. But you can change that if you specify. Okay, so cool. I like this, but I don't want it here. I want this here, and I want the other one up here. Let's rename this thing. I'm going to call this blue text box. That's what it is. Just in case I want to access it, probably not. I don't want to put any default text in here, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste. Control C. This is much easier. Control C, Control V. Okay, cool. Here's my green text box. Control C, Control V. Okay, here's my pink text box. Control C, Control V. Here's my default text box. Right, slightly off for my swatches. Right, that's what these things are in my mind. Right, but they're not so bad. Right now, if I really wanted to, I could position them a little differently. Give me more space between my controls and so on. But let's not. Let's change this color and the name from blue text box or text box 3 to default text box. This is good practice for you guys anyway. The background color is going to be window. So I'm going to go back to system window, right? That's going to be my default color because it's going to look like the default system. When I run this thing, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's going to look like this, default, right? Okay, cool. And now my green color, let's do that one. My properties, you guys are ahead of me probably. I want to go to green. Hey, what if I just type green? Can I just go there? No. It doesn't do what I want. Damn it. But I can click green. So it's green color that's there. I want to say green text box up here, right? Green text box. And now I want to change my pink. I don't know if they have a pink color, but we'll try and get close to it. Is it? Right. So I'm going to say pink text box. And go down to my background color here and change it to pink. What if I just type pink in here? Will it accept it? Pink. Yeah, accepts that too, right? It's a standard color. Okay, cool. So I got my different colors now, and when I run it, now my UI, my box looks like this. I show my options. Hey, it says sales channel here. That doesn't make any sense. I got to reformat that. Okay, so I don't want sales channel, right? I'm going to say instead of my sales channel, what it says, I'm going to rename the group box. Right, I'm doing this on purpose. To color options. Color options group box. Right? And I'm going to go down to the bottom instead of where it says sales channel. I'm going to change this to color options. And press enter. Now, that's interesting. Will this change anything? Let me press play and click on. Now it makes sense. Sales form. That doesn't make any sense. Let's make, this form is almost like an options form, right, that I'm making. So I'm going to go back to Solution Explorer here. Watch me here for a second, guys. This is important because you might mess up. Right click on sales form, rename, and now this is where it actually does take effect. You want it to cascade. Options form. Options form. Enter. It says, do you want to do this? Yes. Options form. I also want to rename the form itself. So I'm going to click on the form, go to properties, and instead of sales form as a title in the title bar, I want to say options or color options. Options. For now. Makes sense? More sense. Right? So when I run this thing, I don't want to show my color options or not. Right? I click onto this thing, it kind of comes off and comes on. Right? And now I have control over these embedded functionality, but it doesn't do anything until I click accept. So when I click accept, I want this button to drive the behavior of what these things are doing. Right? Okay, how do we do that? Well, first of all, I need a button handler, right? It's got to be the accept button clicked handler. So I'm going to double click on my accept button. Okay, cool. Here's my accept button right here. Let me just take away some of this stuff so I don't need this anymore. I've got my accept button handler. Okay, and this one, I'll put some comments in here. So this is accept button event handler. I'll say the clicked event. Click event actually is what it's called. Click event. I'm just commenting here. It doesn't do anything. Okay, cool. So what do I want to do? I want that when I click my blue radio button or my green radio button or my other radio buttons, whatever radio button I click, when I click accept, right, depending on the state of my radio buttons, whichever one I've clicked, right, I want the color to be transferred to the back of the form when I click accept. Now this might be this is a little challenge, more challenging than I think. We're going to spend the rest of the time right now doing this function, right? So how would I do this? First of all, let's think about this. Do I have access to my blue, green, and red and all this type of radio buttons? Well, yeah, I do, right? And I can check to see which one is clicked, right? Okay, let's see if I do this. If I say blue radio button, oh, blue radio button. If the blue radio button is checked, okay, listen to my words. If the blue radio button is checked, when I click the accept button, I want the background to change to blue. However, if the red radio button is clicked or the pink radio button is clicked, I want the background to change to red or pink or whatever. However, if I have, what's the however stand for? Else if, else if, else if, else if, right? Can I do a switch statement here? No, because the switch statement checks the same value. Or I'm not checking the same value, I'm checking different values. So switch statement is in the right construct here. It's if, else, if, else, if, else, if, else. Right? That's what I want. Okay. I want to start off with my default button. So if the default, look at my default radio button, see how it comes up in my IntelliSense? Default radio button, right, dot checked, right, is equal to true. Then I want what? My form, the background for my form, well, I don't know what that is. My form is called color options form or something like that, right? Oh, that's, or maybe the color, what did I call it? Options form. Options form dot background color, default background color? No. Can I do background color or color? Control color? If I don't know what the property of my options form, how do I find it? I go back here, I click on the actual form, I go to my properties, and I look down here to see what my color is. And if you notice, there is forecolor, and there is background image, and there is double buffered, and there's back color. That's the form, that's the control I want, back color. I want my back color and my control to change to a color. Okay, now this is where it gets complex. So options form dot back color. Hey, how come?
It's color options.
My back form, my options form itself. Options forms dot, right? How come I can't get to this color? I can change my mouse buttons, I can change my controls, my active form, right? How can I change my background color, my default, it says default background color. But how do I change the form color, right? I mean, I know that my options form, right? If I go to my options form, it's called options form. And I see that I have this back color, right? My back color. But how come I can't change it? Okay, let's see if there's another thing. It says locked is equal to false. That's good. Right, localization, right, false. Opacity is 100%. Padding, right, show icon, start, text, topmost, transparency key. I should be able to change all this stuff. It's part of my form. How come I can't do it? Anybody? Seems to be not available to me. Yeah.
Just a guess, but just because you're within the scope of your access.
Okay. It could be. But that means that up here in my class, I like your thinking, that I should actually do something like this. So I should make a reference to my form somehow, right? But I am in my form. I'm in my options form. So I should have access to it, right? So if I go options form dot, and if I look at control accessible object, right? I can't do it there. I can't make a reference to it like my form, options form, my form. I could create like a reference to the object with my form, but this is just a reference. So if I say my form, going with your thinking, my form dot, and then do I have options? Do I have accessible to this back color, right? And yes, I do. So you're correct, sir, right? Because the scope that I'm reaching into, and this is something funny when it comes to event handling. My event handler has a restricted scope that only affects the button or forms and the controls in the form, but I can't access the form itself. So I have to create almost like almost like an alias for the form. So my options form, instead of calling it my form, maybe what I'll call it is option form with the lowercase option, just to make sure, just to make everyone confused. Option form, right? And down here, I'm going to say option form. Option form is equal to option form dot back color, right, is equal to, now this is the window color, right here, if you notice there's a color option, color dot window, or something like, if you notice there's a bunch of colors here, tomato, transplant, all these different things here, right? And what I want is a specific color, right? Well, white is kind of not the default color. It's kind of like a window gray color, right? What was that? Control, is there a control color? I don't have a control color. I have crimson, I have all these different colors, but not that one. Huh? Ghost white? With a G? I do. Here it is. Okay, we'll use ghost white just cause, and we'll have to change our swatch to ghost white. Okay, color dot ghost white, right? Now I have to use the color because it has to accept this back color has to be a color, so I have to kind of make it a color. Uh-oh, what happens? I have a problem with true. Oh, it's the wrong. It's got to be lowercase true, like that, right? Okay, so that's good. So if my default button is checked, well, it's always going to be checked. So this is going to be true starting off, right? And then I'll go else if my instead of my default radio button, it's going to be my blue radio button, right? Dot checked, right, is equal to true. Then option form dot back color is equal to color dot blue, right? And same thing with else if. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep going. Else if our green radio button, right, dot checked is equal to true. And again, you might say you don't need the is equal to 2 trump. That's true. I don't need it, but I'm gonna put it in there for best practices for you guys to see, so you're not confused. Option form dot back color. I'm just gonna keep talking. Is equal to color dot green. There's a bunch of standard colors, right? Else if, sorry, I'm going to scroll up here so you guys can see. Else if our pink radio button dot checked is equal to true, right? Then I want to get my option form dot back color is equal to a color dot pink. Okay, I like what I'm doing here. I like it, and it only happens on accept button click. So if we click, this is the way we have to think about when we talk about it. If I click on the button, then I check if my default radio button is checked as true. Then I do this, and also do this. These are the options. Okay, I don't like the ghost white, which is different than ours. This looks like this. Let's change this to ghost white, which means we're going to lose our default color in a second, just to be copacetic. If you notice, this background color window, right, is because, if you notice, it's a system color, and I wonder if I can get to the system colors, which is a bunch of other filtering colors, as opposed to the web colors, which I'm accessing right now. Because ghost white, right, if I look at ghost white, do I even have it here? In the middle somewhere? You got better eyes than I do, buddy. Well, I can always type it in, right? If I don't see it, I can go click, and I can say instead of window, I can go ghost white, right? And click that in there. So now it's kind of an odd color. But what if I want to access that Windows color, that built-in system, not the web? Is there some way of accessing it? Okay, challenge for those people who are out there. Go on Google and look up how I use a system color, assign a system color to a control, right? Because sometimes you'll have to do this kind of thing. It takes you 2 seconds. Meanwhile, let's test this thing out and see if it works. Click on this. I click on blue. Oh, man. Accept. Wah. I got an error. Okay, what happens? It says, On unhandled exception of type system.null reference exception occurred in COMP123 blah blah blah. Check to determine if the object is null before calling the method. Additionally, object reference is not set to an instance of an object, which means we're trying to change something that's not accessible because we're trying to access our form, which is not accessible to us at that particular level, right? And even though I've made a reference to the form, I haven't instantiated the form, it's just a reference. Tell me what to do. Active form dot back color. I like that. Okay. Sure, I like that. And guys, this is all the way we go. So instead of my option form, I can say active form. Is that what it is? Active form. Is that right? Active form. It says form dot active form. It gets the currently active form for this application. I like it. I like your thinking. Oh, I like it so much. Let's control and click and just delete this stuff and put this all in here, right? And change this to active form. But I liked your thinking too, Neil. That was really good. I liked your, because it is exactly what it was. It was a, we weren't able to do it because of the reference. There was no reference for the form. Okay, let's check this now. Green, accept, and we change, right? If I go default, accept, I go back. And it's not really default. Let's get that default color. What was it that you said, Jay? Okay, so system colors. Show me. System colors dot window. Right? Is that correct? Okay. Let's change that back now in my form to make sure it's the same color as it was. We can go back, properties. And I go back to, you guys are changing, you guys have fun, eh? Having fun? I love it. I'm going to go back to window, and that will give us the default look and feel of my colors. So I'll go blue, accept, green, accept, default, go back to my colors, and then of course, that didn't really go back to my colors, did it? Right, and then I can unshow this thing if I don't want to, right? Kind of a neat thing. Hey, here's a question. When I go into these dark colors, my blue color and my green color especially, if I go pink, right? Let's see how pink looks. Pink, right? Except it's okay. I like black on pink. But black on green looks pretty darn tough. I can't hardly read it. White on green, well, it's okay, but definitely blue on green, or black on blue is bad. It should be white. So let's change our foreground color for our active form. Okay, let's see what that property is before we depart for the day, right? So I go to for color. It's called for color, right? I want to change this thing to white. Okay, so let's go back. And if I change it to any one of these, that means if I change it once, I got to change it all the time, right? So I'm going to say like this. I'm going to say active form dot for color, right, is equal to now it's a color, right? So now we can go color dot white, right? And I'm going to just copy this format so I don't have to type it in over and over again, right? Because I want to change my foreground and my background at the same time. Otherwise, it's kind of ugly, right? I can say that when it's blue, right? And so sorry, instead of white, this goes black. I'll be okay. And let's leave it white for green for a second, but make it say black for pink. Cool. Save and run. And let's see if that makes any difference. So, okay, I want to make it blue and accept. Now we're good to go. If I go back to default and accept. Oh wait, it changed that too, eh? That button all mashed up and changed that too. But look, my actual button changed, my color for my button, not just my form. Look, all my buttons changed. If I go green, how come? Well, because my active form, all the children of my active form take the foreground color, right? Because this button is the actual foreground color. I gotta watch it, right? But I wanted to show it to you anyway. So default, go back, and we're good to go, right? So what have we learned today, just as a recap? Definitely there's some more work to do here, right? If I wanted to fool around with, and I know you're guys saying, God, all we did all day was work on, what we call a checkbox and radio button. But I think what we found out is not just about those things, but about what type of control we have with the standard things we know how to do already. We know how to do if statements. We know how to do, well, some of us know how to do our ternary operator, right, which is this thing. And we know how to access objects. Accessing objects or controls on the form is the actual control name, and sometimes some other special names like active form, right? Because active form changes the form itself, right? And again, to be really specific here, we could say, we could specify that only buttons are not affected, only the form itself, the form background, but not the buttons for the forecolor, right? And so on. You could be very specific here, but it takes a long time to program all this stuff. But my point is, there's a lot of control you have here in terms of what you know how to do. You already know how to do a lot of stuff. You guys just got to explore and try it out, right? I'll leave you with that, and tomorrow we'll continue with more forms, and hopefully we'll capture all the form controls you need in a faster pace so that you have most of what you need for assignment 6. I don't know why I have 3s in my head. 3. All right. And that's it for me.